Amanda from Pontes Books here with the current event for chapter 15 of The Prince and the Pauper. Today's current event is loosely related to this chapter in particular of The Prince and the Pauper, but more related to the story in general. So in our current event for today, we're taking a look at someone by the name of José Adolfo Quisocala. And as you can see, he is, at least at the time that the story was written, was a fairly young child and a fairly successful one at that. So this current event kind of has to deal with the fact that we see Tom in this role as king being extremely successful, possibly more successful than other previous kings, simply for the fact that he kind of has the innocence of a child and he's able to see the world through those eyes. Now in The Prince and the Pauper, it's also because he's a pauper and he's coming from that background. So he has kind of more humble backgrounds that contribute to the way that he governs. But certainly a part of it, because we see this with Edward as well, when he's out, kind of trying to get back to the palace, we see them treating people with more kindness and thinking more carefully and more empathetically when making decisions. So I wanted to highlight kind of a modern day child who is just as successful and using his kind of innocence and his ingenuity to change the world, really. So again, just to loosely tie this to what's going on at this point in The Prince and the Pauper. So this is right after Tom sets some prisoners free. Well, at this point, it's just one prisoner free technically, because he determines that he's innocent. Now, what we know as readers is that he determines he's innocent because he knew that this man was actually saving a life at the time because he was there. But regardless of why he makes the decision, the crowd is so in awe by the wisdom that he's showing in making these decisions. So here we see the quote from the story. A low buzz of admiration swept through the assemblage. It was not admiration of the decree that had been delivered by Tom, for the propriety or expediency of pardoning a convicted prisoner was a thing which there were few there would have justified in either admitting or admiring. No, the admiration was for the intelligence and spirit which Tom had displayed. So at this point, they're saying they're not impressed that Tom just let a prisoner go free, because at the time that was actually seen as a bad thing, but they were impressed by the wisdom and the spirit that Tom was showing when making these decisions. And in this story, they're in awe, not only because he's young, but also because they think he's crazy. But this is the moment where they're like, I don't think he is crazy. So a little bit more about, our current event, our future successful child. So Jose is a banker from Peru. And so he founded the Barcelona Student Bank. And this bank has a couple unique features, and one is that it encourages children to save money and also offers customers cash for recycling plastic waste. So we'll get into that just a little bit more in a little bit more detail in just a bit. But what inspired him to be a banker, basically? So he had his mind made up by age 7. And he was motivated by seeing his peers skip lunch because they had spent their money on sweets or football cards, so they didn't have money to pay for lunch anymore. And he wanted to help them be basically more responsible with their money. He also was inspired by the poverty that he saw among children in the area where he lived. And so those things kind of inspired him. He reached out, or he kind of expressed these ideas, and teachers and other kind of adults really thought he had these great ideas and helped him to start this project. So now his banks, again, Barcelona Student Bank is the name of kind of this branch of banks, and it has more than 2,000 clients ages 10 to 18. Children can withdraw money from several different banks. They can monitor their balances online, and the bank helps them to set savings goals. And in order to withdraw money from their bank accounts, they have to reach these goals in order to help teach them, lessons about saving money and responsible spending. And then that piece that was also talked about before, if they bring back, I think it's bottles, newspapers, a couple different objects, then they get money that they can add to their account for recycling those objects. So I chose to focus on him because here we see someone who's a child being incredibly successful in the world, doing a job that in most cases it's an adult that does. But he had some innovative ideas, and because of that was able to come up with this cool concept that's now been very successful, just in the way that Tom was able to think in a different way than adults before him had thought in the role of a king, in order to work through this problem of a prisoner basically claiming he was innocent when they were saying that he was guilty. So I just wanted to make that connection. I thought this was a cool story, and I thought it could somewhat tie in with what's going on in the story at this